Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name is Gerardo. In this video, we're going to be talking about HEX, more specifically 40-cent HEX, and asking the question that a lot of us are probably asking, which is, what comes next? So we're going to talk about all of that. We're going to go over some big updates as well to the website, LookIntoHex.com. For example, you can now access our private dashboard with these advanced HEX metrics with leading indicators such as our rainbow daily delta indicators, our rainbow weekly delta indicators, which spike before local tops. We introduced this and launched the VIP lists live actually in our last live stream, but I thought maybe not everyone heard about it. So I went ahead and am introducing it here for you, that it is officially live, and you can find it on LookIntoHex.com/VIP. And you pretty much get access to not only that, but also the trading view indicators, right? The risk metric on trading view, which is currently at about 0.47. So you can monitor that real time, as well as monitor the price of HEX and how it responds to the regression rainbow levels, both the Fibonacci regression and the equidistant regression rainbows in real time, once again, so you don't have to wait for the once a day updates to the actual website. Speaking of the website, we have some updates. We have some really cool updates, right? We have stock to flow added here as a tab, as well as adoption, right? And we have everything that we used to have as well, just kind of reorganized, right? We didn't get rid of anything at all, but let's show you guys some of these charts. We have our stock to flow. We've talked about it a little bit. We also have our adoption, and this kind of gives a grand scheme, sort of big picture view of things. Because as I mentioned in the past, I explained stock to flow in depth, and it's explained here on the chart as well. But the fact that we have a maximum of 3.69% inflation on allocated supply, meaning circulating plus staked, essentially means you have less effective inflation on the circulating supply due to the staking protocol, right? This introduces a mechanism where we actually export our inflation into the future, the circulating supply inflation. So effectively, you have less than 1% flow per year, which gives, or some years you actually do have that. And this is smoothed into daily and weekly data, right? So we're annualizing, because obviously we have less than 2 years of data. So what we're really doing is looking at daily or weekly moving averages and then annualizing that. So it's sort of an extrapolation. So you should probably know that. That's why you see these kind of different levels of volatility, but similar curves. That's because the white one is the weekly smoothened, the red one is the daily smoothened, but they give the same general idea of what your stock to flow is, right? And you can see that our weekly smoothened stock to flow has gotten to the level of about 227. So yeah, this is ranging between about this 27 level and above, even above 100, right? We have these spikes to like the 200 level, which says that the market cap of HEX should trend towards $100 trillion. This is due to the cross asset stock to flow model. Yeah, again, you can check out the stock to flow video on all of the details on that, but it essentially says that HEX has a inflation and supply dynamics that rival that of silver, Ethereum, Bitcoin, and even gold, right? So it could trend towards multiple $100s per HEX in the long run. Now, as I know that's a very moon boy kind of long-term perspective, but I really like this, and it's now added to the website at LookIntoHex.com/S2F. That's short for stock to flow. We also added some at /adoption, which shows you ETH holders over time, right? To the point where we are now is over 165 million holders. It's a lot of people. Whereas with HEX, we only have like 335,000 holders, about a third of a million. So if we still have, like 500x to go in user base over the next decade, well, Metcalfe's law, right? We describe it here in the summary. Metcalfe's law states that the value of a communications network is proportional to the square of the number of its users. And we kind of go in depth how you could define number of users in multiple ways with HEX, right? We can define it as holders over time or stakers over time. So something like these charts, which are HEX holders over time and HEX stakers over time, is a curve you could input into this formula to get some sort of value. So over time, we can update this tab with more network effect charts, right? We can actually have a network value chart, which, you know, attempts to do something with this math that we're describing here. But what we do actually plot for you here is new hex holders per day. So this in a way is a sort of velocity of adoption. So here you have adoption over time. Here you have your velocity of your holders over time. You can see we are, you know, close to max velocity we've ever had, right? Closing in on the 2,000 new addresses per day, with new stakers closing in at about 744. Again, approaching all-time highs in terms of the velocity, and we've had a steady uptrend ever since big payday. So these are cool charts you can look at. Your adoption since launch on ETH, HEX. You can, again, measure it via whatever metric you like, holders, stakers, or both, and you can see those both here as well. So those are now added to the website. But let's talk about actual price, like what we're all interested in, which is the fact that we hit 40 cents. And we had a live stream celebrating this fact, and actually price went a little higher on stream. I've seen it as high as 42 cents, right? I know we had a wick here to about 44 cents. I've seen screenshots of like 45 cents on other exchanges. I've even seen screenshots of like 76 cents in that wick on Dex.Vision, the HEX USD pair. But for the most part, right now, this is where we are. We're at 38 cents. And the reason you see this kind of curvature I drew here is to elaborate on the fact that our slope is still increasing, right? So this here, it was, in the grand scheme of things, after the recovery, not that big of a deal, right? Because this is what parabolas kind of start looking like. So until we break this sort of really, really bullish market structure, right, where we just keep having higher slopes in shorter amount of time, where we just have these parabola looking structures, right? Yeah, this is really bullish, obviously, but that's the curve we are printing. So until we start printing anything, you know, until you start printing something more bearish, if we do it all, then I will remain bullish, right? I'm just looking at the charts. That's all I'm doing. And, you know, this bull flag here, we called it. We said, you know what? We're headed to the, what did I say, 25 to 60 cent region. And look at where we are now. You could say we've hit that target. And now it's kind of hard to tell what's going to happen, but the dip we did experience was bought up so quickly. It was actually pretty incredible, right? If you zoom into like a 6 hour, you see that the wicks bullishly engulfed the previous candle. Not only that, on the 12 hour, right, you had the same thing, right? We have this very huge indecision candle, high volatility candle. This one is tricky, right? Because these, excuse me, these can form at the end of trends, but they can also be continuation patterns, I believe, these sort of indecision candles. And this is a 12 hour, but the fact that it just completely engulfed this previous candle is pretty bullish. Again, just the fact that the recovery was so huge on a daily, this is the case as well. Again, not the traditional bullish engulfing where your actual candle bodies engulf the previous one, but it is a bullish engulfing nonetheless with wicks, right? So you can, again, it's a semi bullish engulfing, but we looked at a previous bullish engulfing analysis. Again, I'll link an entire video here to that, where we found a pattern where every time we had these chart formations in HEX, price ran up like a lot. This was on a weekly time frame, albeit that, but yeah, it's still bullish nonetheless. You know, something on a daily time frame is not as significant as on a weekly time frame, but it is still fair, right? It's still fair to look at it. So that's that, right? Until we start changing this curvature, I'm still bullish, basically, until further notice. I mean, we're still tracking our HEX versus ETH extension from FIT. We barely curved over. Remember that the reason there's not a huge dip on our charts here on LookIntoHex.com is because it averages your close, high, your open, and your low of the day. And because of that, it kind of calculates out some of that really, really short-term volatility and more or less gives you a chart like this where we're still tracking it super nicely. But even with ETH, right, you can see that it stalled out a little bit right here and had sort of a tiny little dip, right? If you go to the Fibonacci level, you can see that, you know what, I'm really liking the trading view metrics. Let's pull it up on there, actually. I wanted to point it up on here. This is a fun way of looking at our regression rainbow. here, let's zoom out so we can get the whole chart. There we go. So what happened was we actually hit our blue or our cyan level on some guys are saying call it teal, but we hit our blue level, our cyan level on our Fibonacci regression rainbow, right? And we stalled out a bit there, which is interesting because back here with Ethereum we stalled, or not with Ethereum, excuse me, with last year's rally, when the Godwell bought, and then we just kept going up, and it was more or less a 10x from this point right here. We stalled out around purple, came down to blue, and then finished off at pink. Whereas here we kind of stalled out a tiny bit at blue. So if you've been following the channel for a long time, right, for months, one of the ideas we were entertaining for this fractal that we saw playing out was the potential of seeing it play out at one line lower. And what I mean by that is when we looked at our fractal on, say, a chart like this, we noted that our consolidation was largely between orange and yellow here, right? Most of it with a wick, not wick, but with a local peak to the line above and a local trough at the line below. Whereas over here, we saw a lot of consolidation between red and orange, right? And we saw, again, a peak to the line above back here. And we saw a lot of similarities, right? We were touching on it a lot and saying that what if instead of reaching pink, this is the punchline. What I'm trying to get at is we were saying, what if we, instead of reaching pink, we reached something like purple? So that's still in the cards, right? I mean, just look at the slope. This, if it is a fractal of this, it's not playing out as explosively as this did. This right here was about a 10x in about a month, right? What we've seen today, if the move started playing out around here, we could argue, then it's been almost a month and we've seen about a 3x, right? Not a 10x, but about a 3x. So maybe we could see the same gains, but maybe it might take longer, or maybe it might take the same amount of time or a little bit longer and see something slightly diminished in terms of gains, but we don't know. Maybe it's too early to tell. I mean, HEX is a very young coin still, and I have argued in the past that if there was ever a year that would perform similarly to year one, it would be year two, right? Because it's the second soonest year. It's still that point where you have the maximum potential for onboarding. And at this point, inflation is really low, as I just showed in the stock to flow model. So as long as you have good onboarding, you input it into that adoption chart, right? Network effects, and you input the staking mechanics into the stock to flow. I mean, it all plays out beautifully and it trends to the upside, more or less. But we still like to remain cautious and say, well, if we did stall out around purple is currently, if we stall out around there in the near future, around 83 cents, right? And it depends if you look at the Fibonacci or the equidistant one, then it's actually closer to $1. And again, you can see it here on TradingView with custom indicator where these levels actually are on any given day. Yeah, because pink is up there, right? It's about $1.70. But again, if we look at something like this, we see that, well, ETH stalled out here in its lifetime, so maybe we stall out here for a bit. Maybe we consolidate between, 38, 42 cents, or maybe there's a wider range. But this says we could consolidate for another few weeks, right? Nothing wrong with going sideways before a continued explosion to the upside. That would actually be really cool, right? What if we don't reach pink soon, but rather we consolidate a bit and let pink keep increasing and then hit it later by the time it's actually much higher, right? Like $4 in December. So we'll see what time will tell, but things are fine, right? Whoops, I didn't mean to share this chart, but this here is basically a very sloppy parabola I was trying to draw, and with a fractal of what happened back here. So if this fractal played out, yeah, we are talking about potentially $1 in October or even November. This is speculative, obviously, right? It's a parabolic shape on a log curve. So we're talking about a very bullish model. This is more bullish than literally anything. This is more bullish than even something like this, because even this is just lines on a log scale. So even though they're exponential curves, technically, something like this is even more wild. But that is your video for today. Yeah, check out the VIP list if you haven't already. You also get access to liquidity calculator, which you can input, whatever input you would put into the Uniswap pool, and it tells you the final HEX price and the final HEX liquidity. You can also go backwards and ask if you wanted, say, a $10 HEX price, what would that require? And it tells you $100 million of input, and the final HEX liquidity would be about 12.5 million coins. We keep this updated every single day. And you can see again something like the ask bid spread, right? How much money is sitting in asks, how much sitting in bids. You can see we're basically split between 50 and 50, 51 and 49 or so on V2 and V3 liquidity. V1 actually took back over for a little bit. Interesting. So they're playing a little bit of a tug of war here because V3 was ahead by a percent or so not that long ago. So that's pretty interesting to see real time, as well as our HEX USDC versus HEX ETH liquidity, the percentages and values on that, the actual number of coins available, right? 64 million coins available in terms of how much HEX is available, and how much of that is distributed across which pools is shown here, right? In the HEX USDC V2 pool, you have 34 million coins, and so on. You can see where those coins actually are sitting, how much ETH is backing that, how much USDC is backing that, and pretty much all the metrics you could ask for in terms of HEX liquidity on AMMs. So yeah, check that out. A lot of other cool stuff included. But yeah, the intro, I didn't even mention that. There's probably a really cool intro at the beginning of this video, so you guys will probably comment on that. I published it as its own sort of 9-second clip, but I realized that might screw up my watch time per video in terms of YouTube's algorithm. I don't know. I didn't want to throw a wrench in the YouTube algorithm with a shorter video than usual, because it's only like 9 seconds, so a shorter clip than usual. I don't know, YouTube's weird sometimes, so I just wanted to play it safe on that end. But I appreciate you watching. This was sort of a longer video. Check out the LookIntoHex.com updates, right? Everything from the new VIP list to the new free charts that everyone can access. But the VIP list actually got access to these about a few hours early, these stock to flow and adoption models, because I can just chuck those in there while I actually build the site page, like with the summary and all that, right? I can just chuck them into the dashboard super easily. But other than that, yeah, check out the Telegram group at t.me/lookintohex. We just crossed 500 members, so there's some good chats in there. You guys get first updates on when I drop new videos and all that, so join the community in there. It's really cool. I appreciate you for watching and getting me past 6,300 subs. We're blasting our way closer to 10K every single day, making it a reality. So I appreciate the support. Check out the new charts. Thanks again for watching. Comment, all that good stuff. Share the video with anyone you think might find value in it as well. And I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.